discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special pledge edition of Another View. Lisa Godley and I will share some thoughts with you throughout the evening about why it is a great idea to become a member of WHRO. There are thousands of reasons to join public television, and we trust that you think Another View is one of those reasons. Tonight, we are celebrating 100 years of the NAACP. Its mission is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. Now, while we can all cite monumental achievements of the equality in the past, there are many who question the relevance of the NAACP today. Our guests tonight say that the NAACP is more viable than ever. Please welcome Rasheed Wyatt, President of the Newport News NAACP chapter, Georgia Allen, President of the Virginia Beach chapter, John Hines, President of the Chesapeake chapter, and Charles Gates, President of the chapter in Suffolk. Welcome to the program, everyone. How are you? So now 100 years and still going, still going strong. Were each of you at the 100th at the convention, celebrating the 100th year? How was it? Georgia, let's start with you.
It was fantastic. I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most was listening to people like General Colin Powell, Governor Douglas Wilder, Dorothy Height, and many others who have been Spring Guard winners, including the Little Rock Nine, and having them share with us their experiences over the number of years in terms of civil rights. And so I thought that was one of the things that was extremely instrumental in, in letting us know and setting the stage of why we continue to remain so important. I don't like to use the word relevant. I just feel that we're important and we continue to be very significant.
Now, whenever you think of civil rights, to me, the first thought comes up is NAACP. And Lisa Godley put together a timeline for us to take a look at some of the major achievements that have happened over the past 100 years. Let's take a look.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, known more commonly by its acronym NAACP, was founded in 1909 by a group from New York City who called themselves the National Negro Committee. Some of the committee's more famous names included Ida Wells Barnett and W.E.B. Du Bois. In 1913, President Woodrow Wilson officially introduced segregation into the federal government. As a result, the NAACP launched a public protest. As a result of the 1917 Buchanan versus Worley Supreme Court case, the court ruled that states could not restrict and segregate African Americans into residential districts. That same year, the NAACP won a battle to ensure that African Americans could be commissioned as officers during World War I. As a result, 600 officers were commissioned and 700,000 registered for the draft. In 1918, Woodrow Wilson gave in to demands from the NAACP to make a public statement against lynching. By 1935, NAACP lawyers Charles Houston and Thurgood Marshall won a legal battle that would admit black students into the University of Maryland. 4 years later, acclaimed soprano Marian Anderson was able to perform by the Lincoln Memorial for 75,000 people after being barred from performing at Constitution Hall by the Daughters of the American Revolution. The NAACP started a national outcry in 1945 when Congress refused to fund their own Federal Fair Roosevelt Employment Practices Commission, designed to eliminate discriminatory employment practices. In 1946, the NAACP won the Morgan versus Virginia case, ordering states to stop segregating facilities for interstate bus and train stations. And in 1954, the NAACP won its greatest victory in Brown versus the Board of Education, which eliminated the segregation of public schools. The organization's first field director, Medgar Evers, was assassinated in front of his home in Jackson, Mississippi in 1963, the same year they fought for passage of the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. In the years immediately following, the nation saw the Civil Rights Act pass and later the Voting Rights Act pass. And in 1981, the organization fights to extend the Voting Rights Act for another 25 years. During the late 1980s, the organization defeated the nomination of Judge Robert Bork to the Supreme Court through a silent march of over 100,000 protesters. The 1990s brought the Stop the Violence, Start the Loving campaign to address rising youth violence. And in 2000, the Great March took place in Columbia, South Carolina on January 17th. Over 50,000 protested the flying of the Confederate battle flag. In 2008, the NAACP launched Upload to Uplift, an initiative using the web to encourage people to register and to upload the email addresses of friends and family who hadn't registered in an effort to register every last voter.
John, why do you think people would now say that that the NAACP is not relevant?
Well, first of all, we don't have the number of members that we should have in it, and they can't see what we're doing. But you got to remember, the local branch supports the state, and the state supports the national, and we support both. Now, you notice in that film you just had, most of those victories that we won were usually legal victories. Because we support the national, this is the reason. We'll get into the relevancy, but you ask about why most people don't think it's because they can't see us. And
because there's no more marching in the streets now.
That's one thing.
Because there's no more of that kind of outward protesting and so forth. But what you're saying is we're working differently.
We're working differently, yes. But remember now, they're going to begin to see some things now because of our new president. They're going to see a conspicuous race hatred right now in this country because of our new president. And now, we don't say we want to use this just to get more membership, but it's going to become more relevant to people as they see what has really been happening all the time. With this new president, you see things, the hatred. Now, it's not a large part of our society, but it's enough of our society for us to realize that there's much racial discrimination and hate in this country. And
it's still going on. Charles, you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
That because we have a black president, it feels like sometimes that there is more hatred and more, or people are more bolder, I guess, about stating how they're feeling.
Sure, absolutely. Our president has challenged us during his entire campaign to be more active. Most of the haters out there, if you will, don't like that. And as a result, we can see that we as an NAACP, we are able to grasp some of those people that are taking up his challenge. As far as the racial hatred towards the president, if you look at the polls now, if you look at the polls, his agreement polls, how many people are agreeing with what he's doing now as opposed to when he was running his campaign, you notice that the polls are down. However, it depends on which poll you look at, because most people, if you talk to him, they think he's doing a great job. He's only been there for 9 months, not even quite 9 months yet. You can't expect miracles to happen overnight.
Exactly. Rasheed, one of the national mandates, I guess, from Lisa's piece was this whole thing about stop the violence and working with youth. And I know that's something that's pretty big in Newport News lately. How do you tie into that and what's going on?
Well, primarily we have looked at how do we, because NAACP is well known and has a long history of standing up for civil rights. And what we looked at doing in our community because of the crime that has been taking place in Newport News is how do we take that name and collaborate with other organizations to assist in dealing with the violence. We just formulated an organization with the Urban League and with the Weed and Seed and Councilwoman Tina Vick and Councilwoman Sharon Scott and the Community Empowerment Network and some other organizations to develop an organization that's called Crime Prevention and Economic Development Coalition, because we know that we're stronger together than we are apart. There are so many organizations that have programs to deal with our young people, to get them off the streets, to help them train educationally as well as with apprenticeship programs so that they may be more effective and they can be contributors to society and not folks that take away from society. We think, again, using the NAACP's name and its long lineage of historical significance to really combat these issues today.
Now, in this region, let's bring this home for a little bit. You talk about regionalism and so forth. Now, I've got Newport News, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Suffolk. Why isn't there a Hampton Roads NAACP?
Because it's really mandated by national. National wants each city to have their own NAACP. And the reason being is because it's too large for volunteers to be expected to run and hold the entire area. So what we do as a team is we also have what we call an area NAACP, and that's where we all come together. Okay. This side of the house is in Area 2. Rasheed, of course, is in Area 1, so a team of branches come together in Area 1, and they work together. If they have similar issues, then they can address them as a unit. Likewise, in Area 2, if we have similar issues that we feel we need to address, we can address them as a unit. So we do have an area chair for our particular area.
So there was a lot of things that have been going on lately in the news. At the time of the preparation for this show, we had just come past the 20th anniversary of Greek Fest. And George, I'll point to you since this is your city, but the NAACP was involved in the aftermath of Greek Fest. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you all did to try to mend relationships and pull things back together? And were you all, since you're in the same area, were you all also involved?
Okay, absolutely. During that period of time, E. George Menz was our president. He was an activist from start to finish. And I'm very proud to know him as a personal friend. Mr. Menz worked directly with Norfolk State University, and at that time, President Harrison B. Wilson. And what they determined is that we can maybe put some things in place in our city proactively, such as the Minority Business Council. Let's work on how do we increase minority contracts, African American contracts. We put together the Human Rights Commission. Let's take a look at some of the human rights issues that are taking place. And so those were instrumental in terms of tapping down some of the issues. What we didn't find, what I think should have happened as well, is there should have been a youth commission so that the young people, the college students, the high school students could have come together. I think that would have been instrumental in helping to tap down some of the concerns that maybe students had, some of the things that they saw from their perspective, because perception John, is reality.
Yeah, and I see you shaking your head, and, and frankly, I'm surprised that because it was a youth disturbance, that youth would not be involved in the solution.
I was the Area 2 chairman at that time. As I served 13 years as Area 2 chairman. Now, I addressed the community several times during Greek Fest. I think it was WAVY and a couple of others. And as George has said, George Menz was an activist. He liked to keep things close to the vest. As a result, there wasn't that much involvement from the other parts of the community. Jack Gravey, I remember, came down from, he was the president of our Virginia State Conference, NAACP, okay? He came down from Richmond, and I think he met with George Menz on a couple of occasions, you know? And you mentioned there are 15 areas in this...
Within the state of Virginia?
In the state of Virginia.
Okay.
And let's say we're trying to coordinate all the branches together. And Greek Fest was a tragedy. I remember, I'll never forget, my young niece was here. She was a student at the time, and she was down here, and we rode down Virginia Beach, and it was packed. I think also what was a big problem was there were too many people in too small a space. And I just thank the Lord at that time that it wasn't any worse than it was.
So what was the lesson, though, that was learned? Because 20 years later, we're still talking about racial issues in Virginia Beach and still talking about people outside of this area who say, well, if I'm black, I can't go to the beach.
And that's quite unfortunate, and I think that is a PR problem on the part of the city itself. The fact that you still have no African Americans serving on city council does not send a strong message to a corporation who would like to relocate their business to the city of Virginia Beach. The fact that there is not a lot of contracts between the African American community, which is approximately 20% of its population, and the city is not positive on the part of the city. So I strongly feel that the city needs to take a look back as well. What have we done well? What have we not done so well? And who do I need to bring to my table so that we can eliminate some of these concerns? Because when I travel, I hear the same thing from people all over. You know, if an interracial couple, they may decide that this is not the place that they want to bring their family because they don't feel that whichever side is not going to be warmly accepted. So to me, that's a stain on Virginia Beach's reputation, and they have a responsibility to correct that.
It seems a little ironic, though, considering that 1 in 5 people who live in Virginia Beach are African American, and it's statistically the most integrated city, but yet there's still these tensions that are going on. Now, another thing in the news that the NAACP could probably have tap into, and this is the whole idea of President Obama talking to young people during the school year. Beginning of the school year happens. Newport News decides it's not going to air it live. And there's conflict even within media reports as to whether they either decide to tape it or not show it at all. Some say tape, some say not show it at all. Bottom line, not live when it's happening. Right. So.
Well, matter of fact, I called a newspaper reporter and got the story, and then I talked to the president of the board, Teddy Hicks, and he informed me that they did allow for the students to see it live. Good. And there was a request that, because some of the parents were opposed to it, that if a parent didn't want their child to see this, then they had to write a note so that the child wouldn't have to see it. But it bothers me that this is a huge issue nationally, that the president, because of the issues regarding dropout rates and the issues with crime and how it really has a big effect on our society, that the president takes the time to conduct this conversation with these young people about the importance of staying in school and getting education is outrageous. I just can't understand why someone wouldn't want the president of the United States to impart words to their child, the importance of getting education. Because sometimes as parents, we know our kids don't listen to us.
That's right.
But sometimes the third party is someone that is more sensitive, and they may understand and listen to them as opposed to listen to the parents.
And Charles, you were talking about the dropout rate in Suffolk and some of the other things that you all are concerned about. And the president speaking, now I didn't hear anything about Suffolk and whether they had any parental issues with kids being able to watch.
No, the city of Suffolk is allowing. From my understanding, the city of Suffolk is allowing all of the schools to see this particular live event. To piggyback on what Rasheed said, I can't imagine why anyone would not want to hear, in this day and age, as bad as it is for these kids out here, not to hear a message from the President of the United States. I just can't understand that. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And you know, it was not an issue when Ronald Reagan made his speech to the children. It was not an issue when Bush Senior, I believe, Senior made, or Junior made his speech to the children. So we know it's this small minority in this country who are causing these problems. And it's the ones who will never accept our president as president.
And I put it up, I put it out on my Facebook, just the comment and what people thought, and people were just, a lot of them have looked at it as racism, and it's unfortunate because we're trying to move past that, and I think it's so important as a society that we have to come together. There are so many ills in our community, and there's so many problems with our young people, and that when this situation came about and people still look at it as racism after 100 years after we have an African-American president, it just kind of makes you wonder. Where are we going?
Georgia, you were talking about mentoring to these two young folks in terms of becoming presidents of their chapters. What do you all say, and I'm going to ask each of this of you, and we're almost out of time, but what do you say to a young person today? Why should they join? Well, what do they need to do?
For me, it's easy. To me, to join the NAACP is truly a thank you. A thank you for all those folks who came before us, that paved the way for us, that made it possible for a President Obama to get elected to the presidency. So I share with young people, this is a thank you. And then what you want to do is you want to look at the Constitution and out of that find a piece of that belongs to you, that you can relate to. So if you enjoy economics, then join the Economic Committee. if you want to be a social worker, join that social committee. So we have something in there for everybody. As a matter of fact, right now we're doing a HUD program where we have a housing class once a month to prepare people to be homeowners. So for young people, we want them to be homeowners. So there's something in there for everyone.
John?
She expressed it in just so many words. It's opportunity. There are so many opportunities when they join the NAACP. And I'm talking about college scholarships and all types of benefits that they are then will have access to. So this is what I tell them, to come on in. And also, of course, you know, we have to always look back to know just where we're going. And they have to get the history of the NAACP to know who they are.
And that's a positive, not a negative.
Absolutely.
In that sense. Charles?
On that note, Barbara, we've just reestablished our new youth council within the city of Suffolk. We were given a challenge at the National Convention that if we were able to start it up within 1 week, we could get it started. And we did that. Not only with the minimum 25, but actually 30 children. 30 youth, let me correct that. And based on that, we have scheduled next month a financial empowerment seminar that is going to be conducted by our youth. By our youth and for our youth.
And Rasheed, I know you're last. What else would you say to young people?
I think it's a part of reasonable service, and I think to be a part of NAACP, as Georgia said, it kind of links you to your history, and I think those are the things that we really need our young people to link to, because when you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And I think that that's the piece that in many cases that we're missing, that our young people don't get, and that some of them may not join because they don't know that history, because they don't know what we've been through, and we need to bring that to the forefront so that they understand why the NAACP exists.
And that the NAACP is still busy.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
And even though you don't see I mean, I think people are just so used to seeing the marching signs down the street and that kind of thing, but that it's being hit from another angle. Go ahead.
We haven't even discussed the calls we get from the community. Now, I'll go back to the office in a little while, and I'll get on the telephone, and I'll have maybe 3, 4, 5 calls with complaints. We had one complaint where a man asked a young African-American woman out of the swimming pool.
Okay. Wow. Okay, and you know what? I wish we could even get more into that, but we can't because we're just about out of time. But thank you all so much for joining us tonight to talk about this. And we'll bring you back to talk about some more issues as they come along. And our thanks to Rasheed Wyatt, Georgia Allen, John Hines, and Charles Gates for being our guests tonight. Up next, a group of preschoolers go green. But first, here's what's happening around town. They're not even old enough to attend school, but they can garden with the best of them. Lisa Godley recently hung out one morning with some 3- and 4-year-olds who spent a small part of their summer planting and picking and learning the importance of a community garden.
Right now we're doing tomatoes, they've got squash, cucumber, eggplants. We're putting our green plants in now, which are basically mustard greens, kale, spinach, collards, several different of the greens for the fall.
Most aren't even old enough for kindergarten, but they're learning about nutrition by growing their own vegetables.
Right, those are the ones we want to pick, okay? I see a couple of them there. Okay, let's take turns. You want to go grab one of those tomatoes? Take both hands and let's pull them. There you go. Wonderful.
Retired pediatrician Dr. Sean Bryant manages the garden project for the STOP organization.
We have an opportunity to try and develop healthy eating habits while they're young, get them excited about it because they're involved in the process. And as a physician, that's real important to me. I think we have neglected our health, and nutrition is a major part of that. And this is an opportunity when our young people are very receptive and impressed impressionable, to really teach them about the benefits of eating healthy foods in terms of keeping their bodies healthy and enabling them to grow strong.
Michael, I see one.
Smaller.
Here.
It's the one that's
These are your cherry tomatoes.
Michael, tell me what you've been doing out here.
Well, we've been digging, planting a little bit of flowers.
Tell me some of the things you've planted out here, Michael.
Well, we planted some tomatoes, some collard greens.
Well, tell me your favorite part about being out here.
I'll say digging.
This is one of 3 community gardens that the STOP project started in July of this year with stimulus funding. These programs are expected to continue through September of 2010. STOP President and CEO Edith Jones says this is a project that will not only educate the children, but it will benefit the community.
A lot of them felt tomatoes came out of Farm Fresh or Food Lion. That's where they began. They had no idea that they grew on vines and they turned colors and that they could pick them. And we certainly look forward to just a wonderful year and a half of really bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to this community, and we look at it as being a sustainable item, because next year we'll be able to do the same thing again.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Oh, and those veggies look really good. I hope they saved me some. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you'd like to know more about our show, please visit anotherview.tv. There you can download past programs, send us a comment, or sign up for our eView newsletter, a weekly reminder of upcoming shows. We'll see you next week at our regular show time, Thursday nights at 9 p.m. for Another View. Take care, everybody.